Hey! Welcome back once again. J.P.'s World of Wrestling. I'm your man, J.P. This is my World of Wrestling. Last couple of episodes, I've been talking about my collection. I showed you the Galoobs first, and then I went on to my Hasbros. So now I'm going to show you my Mattel retro figures. Now, the Mattels that they have now, like the regular Mattels, if you're just a collector and you're just going to collect them to display them, they look cool. But the problem is, the new figures, my issue is they're too posable. They have bendable wrist joints and ankle joints and knee joints and stuff. I don't need any of that. In fact, in a way, I've tried to get to where I could wrestle with them, but the problem is you're just constantly having to repose them and stuff. It's just, to me, it's a hassle. Plus, I grew up with the Hasbros, and those were my action figure of choice. But Mattel came out with these Hasbro style retros, and I'm going to show you the ones that I have right now. Starting with this one, Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose was a member of the Shield, and then he kind of broke out on his own, as well as all the other members of the Shield, but now he wrestles as Jon Moxley over at AEW. But this is his figure. It's a pretty good figure. I mean, the hands are kind of open. I prefer closed fist, but it didn't matter. I still, could see using him as like open hand strikes and stuff. But anyway, that's Dean Ambrose. Next, we have AJ Styles. I really like this figure. I like the pose that it's in. And it's a figure you can do all the moves that AJ Styles did. I first learned about AJ Styles over in TNA Wrestling. But then he was over in Ring of Honor. But then, a few years ago, he made his debut in the WWE in the Royal Rumble. And I was excited, to say the least, because I like AJ Styles. AJ Styles. Kurt Angle. This is the retro of Kurt Angle. Now, Kurt Angle, I always liked watching him, even though he's more of like the modern era, but I still, I enjoyed watching him in the ring. This figure is okay. It would have been better had he had fists to punch, because he did a lot of punching, but nevertheless, still pretty good figure. I could use him. Kurt Angle. Sheamus. I don't follow modern wrestling too much. I do a little bit, but not real strong. But this is one guy that I do like, Sheamus. A few years ago, WrestleMania, he had, in my opinion, one of the best matches on the card. And it wasn't even officially part of the WrestleMania, it was part of the pre-show. But he was in the match, and he kind of slowed it down. Kind of like an old school, like 80s match, where it was basically a big name wrestler going up against kind of a jobber. But Sheamus, really good wrestler. I like him. The Iron Sheik. This was a birthday gift from my best friend Joe. I kind of debated whether or not to open him, but all my other wrestlers, I should say, are open. And so I thought, sure, I'll open him, because I had this idea that I was going to start playing with these wrestlers again, but I decided that I'm mostly just going to display them. But the Iron Sheik, a legendary wrestler, the guy that Hulk Hogan, the guy in the poster back there, won the WWF title from back in 1984. The Iron Sheik. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. He's on my shirt. This was Mattel Retro's version of Shawn Michaels. This was the later years of Shawn Michaels' career. This is a good figure. This is something you could do all of his moves with this figure, which is, I'm fine with. I think the action move is like one of his legs kind of supposed to kick out or something. I don't know. But, like I said, I don't use the action moves. I just wrestle. So, Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid. Goldberg. This is not a good Goldberg figure. I'm sorry, Mattel. This is not a good Goldberg figure. The legs are fused together. Goldberg didn't do drop kicks. He didn't do high-flying moves. There's really no reason to have him do this move. Plus, the arms are kind of stubby. To me, this reminds me of like one of those pencil toppers you used to be able to get, put it on your pencil, or a foosball figure. Probably not going to get a lot of play out of this one. Goldberg. Another, what me and Joe used to call these leg dolls, because it's like they have one leg and it's fused together, but, excuse me, Seth Rollins, another member of the Shield. And for a while after that, they were kind of using him as the champion. And, I don't know, but again, fused together legs, kind of stubby arms. Probably not a lot of play out of that one. Now this next guy, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is one of my all-time favorite guys. I love Chris Jericho. I followed him since his babyface days in WCW, and later on when he turned heel, I just got a kick out of him. You know, he made me laugh, and I liked his moves. Just some of the stuff he would say was just funny, and I still love him. He's the lead singer of Fozzy. He's in AEW. He's one of their top guys, if not the top guy. Chris Jericho. And then finally, we come to Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's also on my shirt. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, hey, what in the world? But not a big fan of this guy. And I have no problem with the actual guy, but the character, I'm an old school guy. I like baby faces and heels, and I like baby faces that try to follow the rules unless it's necessary to break the rules. And this guy was just, he was a baby face that people started cheering for, so he became popular. Now, I mean, if you like Stone Cold Steve Austin, that's great. I'm not saying anything about you, but Stone Cold Steve Austin is not one of my favorites. I mean, this is a good figure. Don't get me wrong. This, like the pose and stuff, you could do all of his moves and stuff, and I would probably play the heck out of this one just because I like the pose and I like the figure. But I probably wouldn't use Stone Cold Steve Austin kind of like what the WWF used him as. I probably just use him like a Stunning Steve or something, but because he was Stunning Steve Austin in WCW. But nevertheless, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, coming up on this channel, it's been mentioned in some of the comments that you'd like to maybe see me have matches with these guys, like in this ring back here. And we're going to get there. I promise. The only problem is, how do I shoot it? Because right now I've just got a cell phone that's pointed at me. But I'll probably move these out to my living room, and then we'll have some matches. And now, I got some questions in the comments from Allie Anderson. I know Allie. I've known her for years. She's like my sister. And I think one of the questions was, what was my first live wrestling event? Well, I'm going to answer you, Allie. So, my first live wrestling event was a WWF house show. And it was in 1990. My brother-in-law, Brad, he was just my sister's boyfriend at the time, but he learned that the WWF was coming to town in Portland, Oregon. That's where I grew up. And they came to the Portland Memorial Coliseum. And so he took me to see wrestling that night, and it was really great. I still remember the card. Opening match was Hercules versus Haku. No managers that night, just the wrestlers. Second match on the card, Jake the St. Roberts versus Bad News Brown. That was a cool match because during the match, Bad News had hidden Damien under the ring. And after the match was over, Jake the Snake got the DDT and he got the 3 count, but he couldn't find Damien. So I was one of the kids in the crowd that was yelling, hey Jake, it's under the ring, it's under the ring. So he eventually found Damien. He threw Damien in the ring and he put Damien on Bad News Brown, and Bad News ran away. Good stuff. So the third match of card was originally supposed to be a tag team match. It was going to be Demolition versus the Hart Foundation. But Demolition Axe couldn't make it that night. So it was just Smash. So both Hart Foundation showed up. Both Hart Foundation got in the ring. They flipped a coin to see who would wrestle Smash. And Bret Hart won the coin toss. So Bret the Hitman Hart wrestled Smash that night. And there was intermission. Then we came back and we kind of moved down closer to the ring because there weren't really a ton of people there that night. Unfortunately, the Coliseum that night was not even half full. So we just moved down closer because nobody was sitting there. So the next match on the card was Rick the Model Martel against Rugged Ronnie Garvin. Interesting about that was I was sitting close enough to the ring to when Ronnie Garvin threw his towel out to the audience. I almost got it. Almost. But the guy in front of me was able to snatch it up. And I was like, ugh. But nevertheless, it was a fun memory. And then there was a ladies' match. Well, match. It was Sweet Sapphire, the manager of Dusty Rhodes, the American 3 on Dusty Rhodes, taking on Sensational Queen Sherry. Wasn't a strong match just because Sapphire, God rest her soul, she wasn't a worker. But Sensational Sherry, I think, was able to win that match. But then the main event, the American 3 on Dusty Rhodes, baby, versus the Macho King, Randy Savage. Oh, yeah. And that was a good match. It was an exciting match, but in the end, the common man, the American Dream won the match. And then I think the other question she asked me, do I have the figures of any of my favorite wrestlers? I do have some of them. And then she asked me, did I ever try the Mr. T cereal? Yes, I did. I ate that when I was a kid, and I liked it. Anyway, that's my show for today. If you're new here, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.